Quickly, before you watch the video, make sure you're signing up for our newsletter. That link is right down below. We really appreciate you, but you're missing out on stuff if you don't check out the newsletter. Y'all, how long can Georgia be as good as they are now? Which is to say, how long, yeah, how long, Ryan, can they challenge for national championships?
As long as Kirby Smart's got that tick to do it, that's probably what I would say. I think that they're the best program in college football right now. How long was Alabama the best program in college football for?
If
10,
you if
12
you
years?
don't think if you don't think Alabama is the best, well, let's establish a couple of things. In the last since 2000 since they won the national championship in '09, has another team been a better program than them? Was Clemson a better program than Alabama?
No, no, they
Okay,
weren't.
so okay, when was Georgia the so-called better program than Alabama? '01 or 22? Excuse me, 21
I'd
or 22?
I think it was a few months ago is when that shift
20,
happened. I think
22.
it was the second time. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so 13. Are you going to say 13 years? You're going to agree with that, Matt? Oh, he dropped out for some reason.
uh,
Third, go ahead, Matt. Now you're back.
uh, I'd say Georgia passed Alabama with the back-to-back championships.
Okay, so that would mean you're looking at another 12 years of this.
I'll give it
Like
more like
Ryan could have children in this period of time.
uh, we'll say we'll say eight. I'll give it like 8 years of dominance, right?
Of which you've already had two, which would leave six.
I think that the sport is a lot more of a fluid product than it was before. I think there's a lot of changes that keep on happening. There's a lot of things we don't know how it's going to play out,
Right.
what these schedules are going to look like, how it's going to impact these programs. So I think that dominating like that for 13 years, being considered the best program, that's a long time. It's a hard feat to do. I doubt that we look at Georgia, like in 20 years from now, we look at Georgia that way and be like, wow, they really just dominated for 13, 15 years there. But I mean, I don't think they're done winning national championships in this decade.
No, I don't think so either. Matt?
Yeah, I don't think they're done either, but they should be competing for it every year. I mean, they're playing to a standard, right? That's what Kirby says. They play to a standard every year, and that standard is to be the best. And if you're not the best, you're at least top five, pushing, for playoff contention and championship contention every year. So I, I don't think they're going to run off five national championships in a row. I mean, they still have to get this third one, which I believe they absolutely can. I think we all agree there, but they're going to be in the mix for a long, long time. And again, it goes back to recruiting, but other teams are going to have to step up too. Michigan is going to have to get over that hump to knock Georgia off this. Alabama still, has Nick Saban around. I don't think they're going anywhere. I still think they have a national championship or two under Nick Saban, the possibility at least. Ohio State's got to get one national championship under Ryan Day, you would think. And
They will.
so Georgia's not going to win all of them.
Shane Beamer. Shane Beamer.
Yeah, sleeping giant, right? According to ESPN. So we'll see if Lincoln Riley can put together a defense at Southern Cal. He's always going to be able to put up points.
That's the
So
one school that I think could, that there are there are two schools that have not participated lately in the national conversation that I think could be real challenges for Georgia moving forward.
Who's the other
One,
one? Oh, okay. I didn't know you were about to do that.
go ahead. Who would you
No,
think I
I was
would
saying
say?
who's the other one. I didn't know you were about to just say it.
Who do you think I will say?
I don't. Well, I know that you're a big LSU, but that's not what you're talking about. So
No, that is who I'm talking about. Yeah, it would
they
have to
did. They
be.
won the title a few years ago.
Well, yes, they did, and then they found a cliff to jump off of. What I'm saying is, I mean, I think if you look at the landscape, this could be a wider ranging video. At which case, I would say seriously, make sure you're checking out the newsletter below because it's growing, and you're missing out on stuff that we write because we can't talk about everything here. Y'all, when you look at the landscape of things, so SC can compete in a way because they're just location is one thing. There's a lot of draw with. I mean, SC is a big deal. They're a national brand for sure. I mean, we're not talking about UCLA here. We're talking about USC. They're going to change in the conference. They're going to get more spotlight because of that. They will be on primetime on Fox. That will make a difference. There's reasons why LSU. I don't feel like I have to explain LSU to people, but I will. Here's my elevator pitch for LSU. This century, three different head coaches have won a national championship there, and two of them were not very good head coaches. Now they have someone who I feel like would be their second best head coach that they've had this century. So I think LSU is a real problem. I think, or could be a real problem. I think on the outside, I would say in the next 5 years, the teams to watch are Georgia, in no particular order: Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, Michigan, LSU, SC. That group, and perhaps someone like a Texas. Now, I'm not saying Texas. I'm saying someone like a Texas could be problematic. I think the teams that are on the outside of that are Tennessee, Clemson, possibly Miami, although they're like Texas and can't ever get their act together. Oregon, maybe A&M. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody in the league. Certainly, the Gators could jump to the top group if they have the right person. But
What about Penn State or Tennessee?
I do not like the current head coach at Penn State. So the answer there is no. I think I said Tennessee. My volume might have jumped out. Tennessee, Clemson. I think Tennessee, Clemson, Miami, in a way. I mean, there are like sort of ancillary programs that are around Oregon, but I don't know that they are going to be able to consistently jump up and beat up the teams that are at the top there. So when you say, how long can Georgia do this for? There's no school, perhaps with the exception of LSU and maybe SC, but I would say LSU more, that has the local resources that can really compete on a national level. If you just had guys from a 2-hour radius of your school and you only could recruit those people, you're talking about probably Miami, Georgia, LSU, SC, UCLA, but SC and
I put
Texas.
Alabama in there.
Well, at 2 hours, if you don't give them out, they wouldn't get
Okay, 2 hours.
access to Atlanta, which is a really naive way to look at this because we know that's not how it works. Go ahead.
Alabama is pumping out more talent year by year,
As
though.
a
There are
state.
plenty of 5 stars that come out as a state. Now, am I crazy for buying into Florida State a little
Uh,
bit? I'm buying a
no,
little
they're
Florida
they.
State
I
stock.
can't believe. I'm sorry, Matt, and I'm gonna let you talk about Florida State. I can't believe I left them out of my ancillary group. Go ahead. You're
I
right.
think they're going to really push Clemson this year.
Yeah,
They're
I
going
do.
in the right direction. They're one of those programs that is finally getting it back together. A once historic program in the '90s, and I mean, they've got a lot of history, but they haven't had any history since Jameis Winston was there. Now it feels like they're getting back to normal. And we talked about Florida just not knowing what they're doing. Miami's still kind of a
Mhm.
dumpster fire. This is a big opportunity for Florida State, who's going into South Georgia and landing some big time prospects. If they can continue to build and recruit well, they're going to be, I don't want to say a force, but they
Well, they
beat an
could be
LSU
though.
team that was better than we thought, and Florida State was
Yeah,
better than we thought. That was an ugly game to start the season last year, but as it turns out, they were both kind of good,
yeah,
better than we thought. Yeah.
yeah. Ryan, what in your lifetime, Florida State's really not been great, but we've seen the damage that they can do as a program. What does Florida State coming back in any way matter? Can you put perspective on that?
I mean, I don't know what you mean by matter per se, but if they
Challenge for
start
national
winning, I
championships.
mean, they would shove Clemson out of that conversation. I think
Completely.
if
Yeah, I
Florida
agree.
State's challenging for national championships, that means Clemson's probably not.
It means they
Or,
certainly are not. They have both never.
which I
I'm
think they've
sorry.
already lost a step or two.
They
So,
both have never existed at the same time as national powers. You, you you could sort of say that about Tennessee and Georgia. Um, I was going to say you could say that about Florida and Georgia, but I think we have seen Georgia and Florida exist as national powers at the same time. But if Florida State pops up, I think that doesn't help Georgia. I don't know who's more
no, it
dangerous.
doesn't because they could steal some of that South Georgia talent. Like there's 4 and 5 stars that have come out of there. They're going to bleed into with Florida's recruiting. I mean that's a battle they're winning against them.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. Who's
But
who's who's it worse for Georgia, Ryan? Who's it worse for the Dogs for this program to be good? Is it worse for Georgia to have Clemson be good, or worse for them to have Florida State to be good?
I would say Florida State.
I think so
I
too.
think I would say Florida State. I just think that they have a higher ceiling than Clemson does as a football program.
Matt,
I'd say Clemson because when Clemson was winning championships, Georgia wasn't, and Georgia was not a very good program. They were, I
Georgia.
guess, in 18, but
That's not.
I
Georgia
think
played for the
I
national
wouldn't.
championship in between the 2 years.
I think it
Georgia
was
played.
That's true, but when Clemson was becoming what they were, I guess that in 15 and 16 is when I think of that. I kind of forgot about that 17 and 18 there, but
Yeah,
I think Georgia and Clemson kind of recruit against more guys than Georgia and Florida State does.
you
But
give it a year or two.
it might, I might. I'm still going to say Clemson there. But real quick, I want to throw out 3 programs I just want to get your opinion on. Number 1 is Oklahoma. Are they going to be relevant before they have, or are they going to fire Brent Venables before they become relevant again? And then is Matt Rule going to do anything with Nebraska, or is that just going to stay Nebraska, whatever? And then Deion Sanders, can he do anything with Colorado?
Okay, Ryan.
no, no, and no is my answer. That's my quick
Okay.
no explanation.
Okay, so we're talking about Midlands basically. I would
Yeah.
say of the
I
3,
grew up with those programs being very good, and I
Col-
loved watching Oklahoma and Nebraska, Colorado. Those games were great. So part of me wants at least one of those 2 teams to get back to relevancy.
this is a lot of the older bros are not going to like this, and I don't necessarily care, but I think Colorado is the one that's positioned the best of the 3 because Oklahoma's going into the SEC. They have the wrong head coach in my mind. Matt Rule is probably the most proven of this group, but Dion knows what he's doing, and he is getting the talent, and that's not a great league out there. And I don't think that anybody's going to be watching Dion hoist the national championship trophy. But I too am old enough to remember, just like Dion, that Colorado's significance that went away. But you got to recruit nationally. You got to recruit Texas area and Southern California and just the West, generally speaking. And if you can corral all those folks, you've got something different to sell now at Colorado than you do at SC. And I think that that would matter. But I think I would go Colorado, Nebraska, OU because of they're all 3 in different leagues. They also used to be in the same league, which is bizarre. They're all in 3 leagues that are different now. And if I were Oklahoma, I would they have a very good athletic director. They right now, this is a very important season for their head coach, and he's fortunate that that they're not playing Georgia. Georgia kicked the shit out of them this year. But that's a good question, actually. Ryan.
I hope.
Well,
Uh,
I just go ahead.
I don't see it happening with Nebraska. I just don't. I can see.
It's
I just don't know how
challenging
long
there.
Dion's at Colorado.
Well,
I,
but if he's not there for long, Ryan, that means he's had success. Wouldn't you say?
yeah, I mean, I think that I just don't think he's going to be there for that long because I think he is going to do a pretty good job and maybe elevate again after a couple of years. But I guess that does mean that they're winning maybe 10 games or they're competing for the
Would
Pac-12.
Florida ever hire Dion?
Why
Do they have
not?
the balls to hire Dion? I don't know.
They're
I don't
getting
think
it wrong now. If he turns Colorado around and leads them to 10 wins, I think he's a legitimate, proven head coach at
At
that
that
point.
point, no
Yeah.
question.
And then if you're Florida, why not do something different? I mean,
Well, that would
he
be
would be
fast.
exiled from
It
Florida
would
State
that
forever.
would be a problem for Georgia, I think, on the recruiting trail. I think he can reach those guys. He does. I mean, he's
Yeah.
showing that he can do it. Whether he's good at X's and O's, I don't know that anything about him
Who
as an X's and O's
cares?
coach. But
Yeah.
he can get the guys because
Their
they
their
want to
spring
play
game
for someone
list,
like him.
They
Go
got their
ahead, Matt.
spring game this weekend. They got 5 stars all over the
Yeah,
place. Big time
exactly.
4 stars coming to Boulder, Colorado this weekend.
Well,
He's going to win some of them.
Boulder's okay. I mean,
I like Boulder.
Colorado, yeah, Colorado's okay, and like you know when you, it's not that far from Atlanta. First of all, you're talking about a 2.5-ish hour flight. It's not that bad, and I don't know. I mean, I think that he's got to do it though, and that when SC leaves the Pac-12, things will be you know that's going to be the curious thing is what happens in a top 24 after 2024, what happens there.
Should be fun to watch, though. Yeah.
What so going back to this whole thing, what do you think, I mean, with Kirby, as it relates to Kirby, I don't know how long he'll be at Georgia, but I don't think it's going to be that he's leaving anytime soon. That goes back to the whole thing about um, the trajectory of the program. Is it still up? I mean, it just went undefeated.
If it goes up, you're talking about the greatest dynasty in college football history in the making, because they've climbed towards the top of that college football mountain that no one has seen since Alabama. If they win 3 in a row, they're as far on that mountain as anyone has ever been. I mean, that's something Alabama fans couldn't even dream about, I think, is a three-peat. So, but again, if they play to the standard that Kirby wants them to, I'm not sure there is a ceiling on how far or up this program can go. I mean, it really is limitless, in my opinion, how far they can go under Kirby Smart right now.
Are they positioned for that, Matt, Ryan, or do you? I mean, what's your take here? What's the next
Yeah,
5 years going to be like at Georgia?
I think it can keep going up. I totally can. That doesn't. I mean, I think they can go up without winning this year. I don't think that they have to win this year for them to keep going up as a like winning the national championship again. As long as they keep competing every year, you win another couple more. I mean, you're creating a true dynasty. But I think right now in college football, I do think that there's a lot of power to be taken. I think that we're starting to bust this thing open a little bit as far as who's good. You're starting to see teams like Michigan start to creep up into the conversation. I do think that I don't want to talk about Alabama for more than just a sentence or two, but I do think as an overall program, I do think they're on a decline, whether
Who's
that be
this? Alabama?
Alabama. I do think they are on a
Okay.
decline, whether that be steep or not. I do think they can still win national championships, but they're not the almighty power they were, where it's just them and then everyone else. Georgia's turning into that, but I think it's wide open. We talked about a bunch of teams. We talked about teams like LSU, USC, or all those teams, Oregon, all those teams. There's opportunity right now where you can go and grab some of that power. And I think that we're in a transition period for that. And Georgia has the most stock in it right now.
See, that's what I wanted to ask. Let me stick with Ryan here. How much, in your perspective, how much do you think Georgia's success is hurting Alabama? I mean, we could have a 30-minute conversation just about this.
I think it's a lot, and a part of it is because they're in the same conference. They share a border. They compete against each other for 5-star, 4-star kids in the Atlanta area. I mean, you saw this year. I mean, Matt was all over it with some of those Gwinnett County kids choosing Alabama. I mean, this is a rivalry to some extent, right? There's a lot going on there on the back end, and I do think this is bad for Alabama. What Georgia's done is totally bad because now everyone looks at Georgia as what Alabama was.
Right.
They're looking at Georgia now. It's the Georgia Bulldogs, and I think
That takes some getting used to, though.
he's getting older, man. I don't know how many more years he's got.
Yeah,
I
but now Nick looks good, though. I mean,
he does, but I mean, at one point, do you just is he one of those guys that's going to ride it out for a really long time, no matter how bad it gets? I don't know.
is it going to get bad, Matt?
I don't think so, but I do think that things are a lot easier for Alabama when Georgia is not
Yeah.
towards the top. It's a lot easier. And they have lost to Auburn a couple times. I don't see that happening, again anytime soon. But Georgia does, put a thorn in Alabama's side, and they're another local team that, like Ryan said, they fight for recruits with, and they're gonna. I mean, this is not the last time we're going to see those two playing in an SEC championship game either. So there could be some years where Georgia knocks Alabama out of the playoffs in that game. Alabama knocks Georgia out. So things are a lot easier for Alabama when Georgia is not on a roll like they are now. So uh, I think we're going to see a few more Georgia-Alabama battles in the near future, and we'll see how they go.
What's curious to me though is that that's not a real rivalry in the sense that Georgia Auburn or Auburn Alabama, and we will see it more often just because of the way that TV is going to work in the future. But in a way, we've been robbed of it to some degree because the schools just didn't play each other very much for such a long time. But when they've collided, man, I mean, when you think about 12, 17, uh, 21 both times, that's
They're
leaving out.
heavyweight fights. I
No, they
mean,
are. I mean, that's leaving out '02. That's leaving out '07. I mean, like,
18.
18, I forgot about. I should have put 18 in there. I mean, they really are colossal affairs, but I don't think that those are going to continue. See, I don't think that, man. I think college sports change. And I think that you're watching at Ohio State and Michigan what was assumed for such a long time. You can't really make that assumption anymore. Ohio State's not just going to whip Michigan's ass every time. And the time at which Georgia was going to get their ass whipped by Bama, maybe it's coming back around, but it doesn't feel like it. And we were talking about Clemson and South Carolina earlier, or at some point this morning. The Clemson people can feel it. They know they're probably still better, but they know it's not going to be 8 years in a row like it was. I mean, things change, and if things didn't change, we wouldn't have seen Florida go from winning two national championships in 3 years to only a few years later having three losing seasons in a decade. So things change. I think this moment may be the moment, coupled with Tua's throw. Maybe I'm naive, but I think we may have seen the great moments of this time of Georgia Alabama. I mean, I don't know how you could top those two moments, y'all. These were as big a moments as in college football history. The Tua throw, and this one maybe not, but the Tua throw was no question one of the top plays in college football history, period. I just don't know that we're going to see that anytime soon. But anyway, final thoughts on Georgia Bama and if Georgia can keep this up, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that Georgia's the better program right now. I think there might be some more moments. I don't know if that's
Okay.
over. I think
All right.
I don't want it to be over.
Well,
You don't
you
want to
know.
watch that? You don't want
No,
to
I
watch?
do. I do. But I think we have. Unfortunately, when I say we, I mean we as a society chose to bring in Mizzou and Texas A&M at the expense of Georgia and Alabama, which was a business decision, and that's fine. But Matt, what you're kind of tell me what the future. Get your eight ball out and let me know. What do you think?
I, I think if Georgia continues their dominance over Florida and Auburn and Tennessee, they're going to meet Alabama in the SEC title game a few more times. So I don't know if we're going to get those same moments because, again, like you said, those are some of the biggest moments in college football history. But I think we're in for some future slugfests at least. And I'm not going to say Georgia goes on this crazy run against Alabama that Alabama once had on Georgia, but I definitely think it could go back and forth. Again, I don't know how long Nick Saban's going to be around. I still think it's going to be several years right now, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited.
Okay, thanks for watching. I know we went too long.